Well, welcome back to our coverage at Black Hat 2021 with, of course, Security Weekly coming at you live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. I'm Paul Sidorian. Joining me for this micro interview is Eviatar Gerzi, a senior security researcher at CyberArk. Welcome, Evie.
Yeah, thank you for having me in this podcast show.
Yes, it's nice to meet you. Your topic that you'll be presenting on momentarily at Black Hat this year is attacking and defending Kubernetes clusters. I guess for our audience, a little bit about how Kubernetes works, and then some details as to how a couple of your projects, such as Kubiscan and Kube Control, I believe, and Kubesploit.
Yeah. So Kubernetes is it's a system for managing. I will explain it simply. It's management system for containers. So you can manage containers easily. It was created by Google, and most of the containers that are creating are using Docker. There are other companies, but Kubernetes is the best system today for containers, and you can see it by the use. I've been in KubeCon, this conference twice, and every year it's being multiplied with the amount of people. And containers is for those who doesn't know, containers is a way to run applications very easily and without the overhead of virtual machines. You can run hundreds of thousands of containers and with your application without the need to run in virtual machines every time the kernel, which takes a lot of time. So this is I try to explain it simply. And what we did in CyberArk regarding containers, the first thing that I did, the first research was about permissions in Kubernetes. There is something called RBAC. I call it RBAC, but it's RBAC. It's role-based access control. It's a way to control the permissions in Kubernetes. So you can create a group, create user, and bind them together. So I did a research about this and showed some issues that can be done with the wrong permissions.
Now, Evie, is the user in this context an administrator, or is this the user that the containers will run under?
So it depends. Usually, it's the admin that manages the things. You can run kubectl and get all the ports and everything, and it's like Active Directory when you have the DC.
Yeah, gotcha.
So in Kubernetes we have what it called the master and the workers. So it's really similar, and usually it's the admin. But you can create a token with limited permissions and manage it without the need of privileged permissions. I don't know if everyone are doing it, but for example, EKS is a way from Amazon to give you. They prevent you from accessing physically to the master node.
Oh,
so
I see.
And they have some other protections for these things. Now I will say a number of things about the research. So we did a research about permissions in Kubernetes. And from this research, when I'm doing research, sometimes I'm creating tools to help me to see things that will be hard to see with the naked eye, like scripts that will give me all the permissions that are privileged inside the containers. And so this is when I created the Kubiscan. And actually, Kubiscan was a tool mostly for blue team. So if you are an admin of Kubernetes cluster, you can take Kubiscan, run it, and you can see in each container if you have a privileged token. For example, and I saw it, by the way, when I did tests on some customers, I found number of times that they add in Kubernetes when we have the config file that contains credentials. So they add in some pod, which when I say, by the way, pod, it's also like a container. Pod is in Kubernetes, the meaning of one container or more. I'm explaining this because I don't know if everyone that listens know about Kubernetes. And so Kubiscan can help you to search for these kind of things and privilege pods. So it can be really good for admins of Kubernetes that can give it access to go over your cluster. And it will give you all the things that can be exploited by attackers.
Yeah, so this is like a privilege escalation inside of the Kubernetes cluster, right?
Correct, yes. By the way, I also showed, in this research, I showed how you can, if you have a create pod permission, how you can escalate it to get secrets. And we did a couple of weeks ago a CTF, and this is one of the thing I created a CTF about this thing, and I noticed how many people know Kubernetes and not. So it was fun to see it. By the way, most of them are not familiar with this. And this is what I'm trying to do. We are trying to do to make people know more about this. Okay, and this is a funny story. After I created Kubiscan, we did another research about Kubelet, which is the agent in the nodes that create the containers. This is who is doing the real work. When it received a call to create a container, this is the agent, the service that creates the container. And so I did another tool about this. And then my manager, and I had an idea for another tool to see tokens. And then my manager told me, Manager Lavi, so back in the time, he told me, maybe just create one tool for everything and not every time create a tool for. So I said, okay, let's maybe do something more offensive because most of the tools today are in Kubernetes are for scanning, scanning for permission, for privileged pods and all of that. So, but I didn't see really good tools for offensive. So I told him maybe we will create something like Metasploit. And he said, okay. So I started to work on this, but I didn't want to invent the wheel. So first thing that I did is to search for someone that already have the infrastructure. And I wanted something like Metasploit, but Metasploit was written in Ruby and I didn't want Ruby. And I found a great project by Russell Van Toil from SpecOps. It's called Merlin. If you don't know, search for it. And it's a great project that he did. And it's like Metasploit written in Golang. It's really easy to use. I took it and I added some features. Like you can run, in Merlin, you can run modules in shell script. But I wanted Go. So there is another project called Yagi, which is a Go interpreter. So I took it, put it inside Merlin, and now I added ability to run Go modules on the fly. Meaning, you have the agent. For example, you're an attacker. You got or red teamer. Got to the you got a shell, interactive shell inside container. You run the agent of Kubesploit. It connects you to the server, and then you can run modules through it. You can send the modules, and you can write new modules without starting the server again. Right? New modules.
It's a runtime interpreter that you've put a hook or an agent inside of a container. If that container is running in Kubernetes, basically you can use your exploits to move within the Kubernetes cluster.
Exactly. This is the great thing. It's flexible.
Yeah, that's awesome. You can just try it.
And this is when we started to write modules that are relevant to Kubernetes and Docker. And by the way, I removed the modules that Russell had because I wanted to make a difference. I'm not sure if it was a good decision, but I wanted to make a difference, to make it only for Kubernetes. You can always take the old modules from Russell that are not relevant to Kubernetes, like privilege escalation in Linux or in Windows, and you can add them too. It supports it. There's no problem. But we wanted to make it different. And for every module that I wrote in Kubesploit, which is offensive, we also have a defensive, like we have scanning for CVEs, scanning for services in Kubernetes, port scan that I added. So the offensive modules, like we have something like currently four breakout modules from a container. So all of them, for all of them, we have a mitigation. So every module, a new module that we enter, I wrote it a mitigation and how it can be, how can you defend from it.
Yeah.
We don't enter any 0 day, 1 day. We are not trying, to make someone to use it for bad.
Right.
You can use it for bad. Yeah. You can always take and create your own modules, but we don't want it. The idea is mostly for red teamers, and also blue teamers can use it.
Yeah, because usually it's a configuration that leads to a container escape or some type of abuse of Kubernetes, right? And so I like that you have both the offensive and defensive modules there, because it's really all about the configuration in your containers and Kubernetes, right? Because your secrets are still base 64 encoded in Kubernetes. Is that still the standard? Yeah.
I didn't understand it. They can do it.
So much,
There is a way to encrypt, The problem is that there is a way to encrypt things, but when you do it hard for the user, so you will probably won't do it, because it's mostly, we can think, okay, what is the chances that someone, but you need to give it, to make it more easily for the user, like in one click to encrypt the secret or something like this.
No, I agree. Yeah, when we get into secrets management, the greater the difficulty of implementation, the less likely someone's going to implement it. However, we make it too simple, then it just really doesn't matter. From an attacker standpoint, it's like, well, why'd you even bother, right?
Yes.
That's really amazing. So you've got you forked a framework that allowed you to write modules in Go and have basically a C2 channel within containers. Now, are there modules? I would assume the first module that I would run, if I were to take over a container, I have shell on it, and I were to put my C2 implant in there, I would want to know if I'm running inside of Kubernetes or not. Like, what environment is this container running in? I'm assuming you have some kind of enumeration to determine that.
Yeah. So there are, by the way, this is we released it on April. So there are still work that we are doing. We are thinking about new stuff all the time. So currently there are not in a lot of modules. Like we have 4 container breakout modules, 1 kubelet attack module, and 3 scanning module. So yes, we have like the port scanning module is focused on Kubernetes ports, so you can run it and you can see your environment. A new thing that we still didn't edit, but we are working on it in these days, months. So it's integration for a project called Deepsy, which can show you inside a container all the vulnerabilities that you can use inside it. So in Docker container. So if you can break out or privilege escalation or something like this, our scanning module we will improve with this. We can still have more modules to write. But the first thing that you want to do is, like you said, enumeration. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, because then I would imagine features will start being implemented that if I can compromise one container and then I can scan and find the other containers, I can compromise those containers, and kind of now I've compromised the entire environment potentially, which would be bad for the defenders.
Yeah. But by the way, this is an idea that came from my colleague Yaniv that is working on it. One thing that I didn't think about is when I wrote the modules. The problem is that when you start Kubesploit, you don't know what module you want to run. You can start just, for example, run some mount container breakout module and it won't work for you. And if we will have something like, I don't know, 100 modules, so how you can know what modules work? So now we are working on this to create a module that will tell you what modules can be exploited.
Yeah.
So it will save you all the time for guessing. This is
right.
I didn't think about this when I wrote the modules, but it's important because when you are inside the container, you want to know what are your possibilities. If you have a privileged token, if you have some open ports that you can access.
Am I running as root inside the container or not? Right. That changes.
By the way, from my experience, most of the containers are running as root because this is the default, and seems that most of the people are not changing it. So
that's like the first thing I do when I build my own container is I make sure that it can run as not root.
Yeah, but think about this. Like, you are a developer, you start and something doesn't work. Okay?
So the first thing you do is
let's start with the root. Let's see if it's work. Okay, it's work. Let's leave it for now.
Yes.
And maybe later, and then you forget. You leave the company, someone else come.
It's very true. Well, Evie, thank you so much and for appearing on Security Weekly. I think your project is really awesome, and I can't wait to check it out.
Thank you very much. It was great to be here, and thank you for giving me the time to speak with you.
Outstanding. Yeah, thank you. So where can people find? Is it on your GitHub? Is that where?
Yeah, on my GitHub. You can find me also in Black Hat. I will, I think in half an hour, I will be there.
Yep.
Search for Kubesploit. Or my name, you will find it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Evie.
Thank you very much.